This episode of Small Business Leaders Podcast is brought to you by Adams Lane Photography. Hi, and welcome to this episode of Small Business Leaders Podcast, coming to you from the Legacy Podcast Studio in Kernersville, North Carolina. Today is a special edition. My name is Audra Adams, and my co-host today is also my business partner, friend, and basically family for the last 30 years. Please welcome Daniel Midkiff to the show.
Thank you very much.
If there were applause.
I'm sure.
You're the man, the myth, the legend.
Yeah, sure.
The man behind the camera. You make it all work. So how do you feel about being in front of the camera?
It's fine. It's not bad. I mean,
I'm
lights are probably a little bit rigid, but
we'll move on.
Yeah.
We'll get past that. So the reason we wanted to do this episode in particular, do you want to tell?
Well, we just want to give everybody kind of an insight to who we are, what we are doing here, and why Adams Lane is even involved in Legacy Podcast Studios. And we've probably hinted at that throughout episodes here and there. So just give a rounded perspective of what we're doing here.
Right. So our viewers, every time we start a video or you click on one of our videos, you'll see me come in there and said, this episode is sponsored by Adams Lane Photography. And, why is that? I mean, so I'll tell you why that is. I know you can't talk back. Legacy Podcast Studios is located within our personal photography business building.
Right.
And we kind of always knew that we wanted this room to be a podcast room, but we didn't know quite how to get there. So what we've done here and what you've done here is really kind of remarkable for, I know, the budget that we've had at the time.
Zero.
The time that we had. And I think I'm really proud of the work that we have put in to Legacy Podcast Studios. However, we also put a lot of effort into Adams Lane Photography.
Sure, yeah.
Definitely. A lot.
Yep.
And we're small business. And so we wanted, the viewers to know, hey, where did we start? What are our goals? What have we met? What have we done in the time that we've been working together? Now I'm about to tell everybody how long we've been working together.
It's fine.
Are you ready?
I have no shame.
I have no shame either. So we have been working together for 30 years. Yes. I said minimum.
At least.
Yeah.
At least.
Maybe
probably
more.
Longer.
It was longer. It was longer, but 30 was like rounded.
That's a roundish number that we can.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
We can.
And you might wonder if you're listening, you might not wonder because you've never seen our faces.
Oh my gosh.
Daniel's phone was on.
Sorry.
He's usually behind the camera, and that's one of the reasons why. So you might look at us if you watch us on YouTube or Facebook or any of the other platforms and think they're lying. There's no way we could have been working together that long. And it's true.
Yeah, I don't know the child labor laws.
It was child labor for sure. So
we had fun though. I mean,
all of this kind of began, not kind of, it did. Our parents were friends before we were born.
We went to church together.
Yeah. So it was just a natural, our families were more together, and my brother became your best friend, your sister became my best friend, and that's just how it was,
Yeah. I mean, if it wasn't every other weekend, we were at one of another's houses or something like that,
right.
Church functions and, going skiing and all those painful things.
You brought up going skiing. No, you didn't. You were so scared.
I was terrified.
I had to get you off that mountain.
Yeah, it was bad.
Yeah, it was bad. Never to be done again. So I hadn't thought about that in years. So that's still, so then we get into our teenage years.
Right.
Pretty good. But before that, my whole life, I had been singing, and I was on the road with my parents and my brother, and we have been doing ministry since I was born.
Yeah.
And at that point, we were with a group, and then after that, we went out on our own as our own group. So we had a bus, and we sang like everywhere.
We had a bus.
We had a bus.
I remember that day.
I do too.
When Dawn gave us that bus.
We were gifted the bus, which is amazing. But the shape that the bus was in,
it was bad.
It was bad. I mean, we couldn't go in the back because
The
exhaust was leaking so bad. Anyway.
Y'all come sit up front. Don't stay in the back.
Yeah, it's okay. You only get poisoned a little. So that brings us to like 13, 14 years old, something like that.
Yeah, it was like 89-ish. You guys had left the Gethsemane Quartet, and then my dad was in the military, so we had lived in other states for, a good portion of that time as well. So we came back in about 89-ish, somewhere in there, and, I think we all kind of regrouped.
Yeah, immediately.
Like right after church one day, we all sat around making nasty things and nasty concoctions and food at the Shoney's. I remember that day.
Oh, I don't remember that.
Yeah, that was nasty.
So
stuff I would never let my kids do.
So if we're gonna fast forward just a little bit. It started with Matt asking, "Hey, can Daniel go on the road with us this week?" And we were like, "Sure." And then it became every week you just showed up and you were going on the.
Yeah, whenever my parents would let me, it was it was a little. They were a little confused by it, I think sometimes, which justifiably.
Rightfully so. Yeah, rightfully so. So as we're, with what we did, we were oftentimes in a recording studio. We were oftentimes on live TV.
Yeah.
We were oftentimes on recorded TV. We would make like live videos to sell. I mean, there was just a lot that went into what we were doing. And I think you were probably 15 or 16 maybe.
I think the first real experience, I mean, we went weekend here, weekend there, was the bulk of it before that.
Right.
The first real trip was when my dad and I flew out to Oregon.
Or Washington.
We flew into Seattle, drove down to Oregon, and you needed drivers to help drive a long trip in a short while to Indianapolis, I think it was, or somewhere over in Illinois.
Oh my goodness.
And so my dad and I flew out. I was 15, maybe 16.
Yeah.
No, I was 16 because I did have my driver's license. We flew out there and met you guys in Oregon, and then we drove really hard.
Yeah.
All the way to.
I think
we dropped we were supposed to drop us off in Indianapolis at the airport so we could go back home, and I was like, I think I want to finish out this however long this is. I don't remember. It was probably another week.
Yeah.
Maybe, and I think that's when I really was like,
I'm coming with
this is what I want to do.
So you began to learn how to drive our bus, and you also became very adept with sound.
Yep.
You've always kind of been techie in that way.
Yeah, I think, like from, I don't know. I was always mechanically inclined growing up. My dad was a mechanic.
That's true.
So it kind of made sense on that level to me. That way, it's wires, it's buttons, it's, it all kind of worked out in my mind. So I think I naturally gravitated to that, and just started picking it up, and
just learn as you go. So how does that get us here? I'm about to tell you how that gets us here. We needed a logo. I remember for something for
Yeah.
everything. I don't know if it was for copyright or
Yeah, I don't
trademark.
remember exactly. I think we were working on an album-ish. Well, we hadn't even started working on an album. There was something going on.
That's when they called them albums, folks.
Yeah, right.
Now they're called projects.
Projects, because
Yeah.
they can be anything now.
Yeah, they can.
Nothing at all.
Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah, you guys, your dad was wanting to have a logo for some reason or another. I don't know why, but and he and his sister, I think, at the time, not that they're still sister, brother,
right.
But at that time,
Sure.
they were working on it together.
Yes.
That's what I meant to say. And I had, to give a little big backstory, I had been working, doing, we always had something to do if we were not on the road.
Right.
So, because
We didn't make any
there was no
money.
money in it,
No.
as far as we were concerned.
Right. It paid the bills.
It paid the bills for the family,
Right.
and then maybe a little bit of extra.
Yeah.
But mostly it was to pay the bills for the
Same.
family, and then go back out the next weekend
And do it
do
again.
it again. So we all, your dad had side jobs, your brother had a side job. You weren't old enough at the time yet to get a side job. So I had prior to working with you guys, I had done some work with a company and learned graphic design
Gotcha.
in that company. Fast forward to this time, they're working on this logo. Your aunt and your dad were sitting at the computer, and they were just fiddling around, trying to make stuff work, and however the design program was, they were just like, well, I want to do this, I want to do that. And it just so happened to be that program was what I'd been using for years to do work, but nobody ever really said, hey, would you help me with this? Or nobody really knew exactly what I was doing.
Yeah, let's put it
when I was off the bus.
Exactly. It's not like you're a sharer, kumbaya.
No. I'm
you
not.
You don't come in and go, hey guys, you know what I did this week? Like we didn't
know.
No,
we
didn't know.
It was, and nobody would have known, because it was just me by myself.
So
I had I bought a computer, and I was doing freelance design work for print shops when I wasn't on the road.
We had no clue. He spent 4 days a week with us, and we had no clue. So you see them struggling with this, and you kind of jump in to.
Yeah, I was just like over the shoulder, kind of looking and going like,
you could
hey,
put
maybe
this
if you did this over here, it would help. Maybe get you where you're going.
Yeah,
and we did that for, I don't know, about 30 minutes. I was hanging out, watching them do their thing, and I was just giving them little, maybe you could do this, maybe you could do that. And at some point, they turned around and they were like, what?
Yeah,
what's going
I remember
on here?
Dad. He goes, you know how to do this?
Yeah.
And you were like, yeah. And he said, how did I not know that you know how to do this? He said, do it. Like, sit down and do it. And you did.
Yeah.
And from that minute on, you best believe we were asking questions
Right.
about what you were doing. And
we were doing all kinds of silly stuff after that. We were photoshopping pictures and, doing stuff. I think there's probably a picture somewhere.
Oh gosh.
It's the group picture. And it was right at the time when I started traveling. Your brother started not traveling. He went with another group. And this sounds corny and stupid, but we photoshopped me into the picture instead of your brother. Yeah. I have it somewhere. I don't know where it is. I don't remember. But and thinking back on it, I'm like, I would never do that ever. Ever. That's just dumb. But back then, no, nobody would have ever known until today.
Yeah. So that brought us to use. We also found out you had a passion for photography and you had a camera, and that's also how do we not know this? We're paying photographers to take pictures.
Yeah, we did. We went to Atlanta. We did a shoot with another photographer.
Yeah.
And then we did all that, came back, and we were like, I don't know if it wasn't garbage,
But it just wasn't.
but it wasn't stuff we could use. We ended up cutting it all up and designing that album cover differently than we would have when we went into the shoot.
Yeah.
So we're like, why aren't we doing this ourselves? I mean,
right. It started
basically as a conversation inside,
So really it just naturally transitioned to, we went all in-house for
pretty much.
our stuff. And that's the beginning of because I don't know if anybody's noticed, but I'm a little opinionated. And I was a lot opinionated then as well. And so you and I would like go over, well, do you like this here? Do you think it looks better here? And we just began to have a rapport when it came to working, and it was very peaceful. It wasn't like you would get upset if I said I didn't like it, and vice versa. So this goes on another 10 years, probably. Yeah.
Yeah, it was, I mean,
a long
it was
time.
At least a 10-year.
And then you got married.
Yeah.
And you came off the road, and you had your babies and all that. But you still did design work. We still worked.
Yeah, I went, like, basically when I came off the road, I went into design full on.
Yeah.
Working for printing companies and marketing. I worked at a mortgage company in their marketing department for a while, and had several other design roles in that time.
But if we had something to do, we were working together.
Yeah, we did. We still did pictures for covers of albums and
designed the CD covers.
Yeah, we did the CD covers. We did all the website work.
That's right. When the
we
websites,
did the promotional materials and all that stuff.
Well, anyway, through that time, I guess it was about 15 years. That's kind of how.
Yeah, that was our little like family. Everybody had a family.
Yeah.
You were building your family. I was building my family, and we all we were still around each other for a lot.
Yeah,
we just didn't actually travel together, things like that.
So we always had a reason to work on something.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whether it was, but anyway, so we fast forward to about 7 years ago.
Yeah,
and I had the opportunity presented to me to consult with the School of the Arts here in Winston-Salem. And I had gotten involved in theater with my children, and it was wonderful. And, thankfully, Winston-Salem has a lot of arts. Like we're I think the city of the arts. I'm not sure, something like that. Anyways, this was going to be a very big production, and I just looked at the one of the top people there, and I said, I can't do this without Daniel. And they were like, who's Daniel? I said, let's have a meeting. So when we did have the meeting, we all agreed that we would come on as not only consultants, but like technically everything that kind of needed to be done was getting done by us. And here's the thing about what we do. We just say yes.
Yeah, most of the time.
And have no clue if we can deliver.
It's probably not a good thing.
This is for small business, like probably don't do this. But we just said, oh yeah, and we need a video rollout, and we need all the headshots from all the kids, and then there's like 40
Oh yeah,
50.
that was a big project.
Yeah.
And not having, number one, we didn't have a budget.
No.
Like zero budget.
Yeah.
And that's seemingly odd saying it, from the School of the Arts, there's no budget, but this was a community outreach program where kids would come from the community, not from the school. They weren't tuition paid students from the college. This was like a summer camp-ish kind of thing.
But
it was all year round, but it was that feel of a program where they kept working on it.
And UNCSA had never had a full-scale production ever of community.
For
community kids. So we began to work on that together, and really produced so many things in that. And I won't get mired down in that process. But when we got done, number one, I was like, oh, thank God. It took a lot.
It was a lot of work.
But we looked at each other and we're like, that was fun though. Like for us to do it, that was fun. And so all of a sudden, I guess people seeing the headshots that we had done for that program and the rollouts of the video, they began to ask us to do things.
Right.
And we said, sure, that's fine. And we began to do it. I think you had a flash and...
I had some really old photography equipment at the time, and we just made everything work however it could work. Yeah. And I may have borrowed something from somebody else at a certain point. I don't even remember all of that. But we didn't really have a plan.
No.
I mean, other than
ever.
Let's do this, make a plan, and then
Do you remember the day that I called you and said we're going to make a video?
Yeah, that was shortly after that.
I had a video that needed to be made for another company. Yeah. And so I just called Daniel and I was like, hey, tomorrow we're going to do a video shoot, and I just bought a chair, and that's what we have.
Can you go pick it up?
Can you go pick it up? And you went and picked it up.
And I said, where are we going to put this chair, and how are we going to do? Like, we didn't have a space to do it in.
No.
We didn't have, we had a chair.
We had a chair.
I had a camera.
We still have that chair.
I had a camera. One.
Yes.
And so I started brainstorming how in the world we could do this. I had a friend who had always said, hey, if you need anything and I can help you, by all means, give me a call. And I called that man, and he said, absolutely, you can use my space. And we used a little, I don't even remember how big it was. It was like a 22 by 15-ish square box of it was like a storefront. It was. It had glass windows on one side, and it was just a box on the inside. And we
had to shoot at night because there was a window and we couldn't have it. And we just began. And to this day, I looked at that video.
It's good still. Yeah,
it's really good what we did.
And we shot at least three different videos in that space in a really short amount of time.
Yes.
We did the one you originally planned. We did that one, and we shot it in 3 days, I think. From the time you said, hey, let's do this, we were shooting in 3 days. Very short. Like you said, let's do it. It was a Friday. On Monday evening, we were shooting. Yeah. And we had finished. I mean, we did it in that one take,
we did it
really.
In one take, yes.
Really.
There was no alternative other than that one take. Yeah. We borrowed cameras to have multiple angles.
Different people cameras. And
so it turned out good. And then we went on to the editing process. And oh boy,
that was
did we learn a lot of things.
We had some interesting discussions about that.
Yes, very.
So
Daniel and I will do video, just so anybody knows. We will do it. But it does cost our relationship a
It's so much
bit.
easier now. Like with the technology we have now compared to then, it's way less difficult.
I mean, color grading.
Oh my gosh. Even just finding camera angles back then, we didn't have the equipment we have now, obviously, but we had to watch all the different pieces of footage at length to see what we wanted to use. And now today we just hit this button right here and it switches over to this camera and this camera over here. And so it's not anything that we have to really manipulate
like we
as
did.
Much. I mean, we still had to find the right things and do some editing. But
I remember just having a notebook. I'm like, this line's good.
Yeah.
This
time codes.
And
yeah. Yep.
So we knew it was a thing. We were starting to get asked to do photography more and more, and also build our own content for another business that we were involved in. So we realized pretty quickly we were editing in chairs, but at office spaces that were only meant for one person. And I was like this. And it just fell into a
Well,
role
we were
of,
sitting. I mean, we were sitting at the table. We were sitting at
I
the
know, that
kitchen
was
table.
hard
You know,
for
on the
hours.
couch. You know, there was a time you hurt your back or hurt something, and we were sitting actually in the bed, editing, propped up, and I was like, we got to do something different.
Yeah.
You know, we can't do this.
So we got a little outbuilding. We call it the little cottage, and moved it onto into my backyard.
Yeah.
And we made it an editing suite.
Yeah.
And we thought we had made it at that point.
Right.
We were
because we could shut the door and lock it, and the kids couldn't come in and bug us.
Yeah, but they could knock. They knocked.
They
all
did
the time.
all the time.
So
we thought that's what it was going to be.
We did this, and then we thought, oh, we can do photography in here too. We can blah blah blah, and we did some photography in there.
Yeah, it was really tight. It was only what I mean was that.
It was 12 by
12
20,
by,
I think.
Yeah, maybe 12 by 20.
Yeah, I still have it.
Yeah.
So anyway, we do all this, and we just continue to keep growing and growing. And so a friend of ours here in Winston said, hey, there's some space here that I would sublease to y'all if you wanted it. And for a very reasonable.
Oh, it was
dirt cheap.
It was dirt cheap. Let's not even say reasonable.
Yeah,
anymore.
I mean, so dirt cheap.
So cheap.
And but even that, we were like, can we make that overhead?
Yeah, right.
Can we do that?
It's always a little like having no overhead to having any overhead is always
scary.
To me. It's like, all right, what are we doing? Are we really serious about this?
Yeah.
And it makes you kind of reevaluate where you are, number one, and where you think you're going and where you're actually going.
Yeah.
So you have to have a reality check in any, I think at any level of business, really, when you come to that point where you're going to grow something.
Yes.
You know?
So we kind of looked at each other and we said, take a deep breath and okay, we'll do that. So we got to doing that. We had to remodel that whole thing, put floor down. I mean,
it was just an older office building.
Small.
We appreciated the heck out of it.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, but it was small, low ceilings, and so we transformed that to make it what we needed to make it. And
for pennies on the dollar.
Oh yeah,
because we had my husband, we had Daniel. They're all inclined. We even got the kids in there at points.
We didn't that particular one. We didn't have a whole lot of leeway. It's like we couldn't paint the walls.
Oh my gosh!
Right?
We couldn't do anything. We had to get these magnet hooks that hooked from where the drop.
Nothing would stick to the walls at all. It was everything was so old. I guess I don't know what had been on those walls, but nothing would stick to it. Like so, you couldn't use command strips or anything to hold it. So we rigged up every little curtain and backdrop is the best we could do it.
So what you're seeing now basically is the product of living. And we stayed in that building for 5 years.
Yeah.
And we were able to produce much of our portfolio out of that studio.
Yeah.
Which is crazy to me. Some beautiful portraiture and, different things we got to do in that room and that space, really. But it was a room.
Yeah,
it was just a room. So anyway, we then again knew we had outgrown where we were, and the building was sold. The building got sold, and it got turned into a daycare. So we were trying to shoot video or shoot a new client in a session.
Around. It didn't work anymore.
No. So we began to search, and we found this place. And I remember pulling up to here, and I just looked, and I was like, I don't want to love this, but I think I'm going to love this. But I don't want to love this if I can't have this.
Right.
And we walk upstairs, and we just look, and we knew at that point.
I mean, it was a much larger commitment than we had anticipated.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, because we were like I said, we were going from something that was
so
reasonable.
Yeah.
Crazy reasonable to, figuring out how we were going to do this which was
Still
reasonable by means, but it was 3 or 4 times what we were paying
Yeah.
before. So we had to really adjust to what we were. Well, number one, our commitment level had to
Yes.
really, really bump up.
Yes.
And then figuring out how we were going to take that budget and move it around so that we could afford the space and afford the work to do the work.
Yeah.
You know, so.
But all in that time, we fell into these roles, and this is what I would say. And if you're in a partnership and in business, we fell into our roles pretty seamlessly. Daniel knew where his strengths were, and I knew where mine. I know now more, but I was learning where mine was, which was the people, the calling, the booking.
Right.
During a session, the cool thing, and that was always a selling point that makes us a little bit different, is we are a team when it comes to photography. Even if you're holding the camera, I'm holding an iPad going,
right.
I like the light here. I dislike it here.
So we're still doing the same things we've always done.
Right.
We've always collaborated on something. It's just a different medium at this point.
Yeah.
With photography and specifically.
Yeah.
And we've been able to take that and kind of, I mean, it's not to say that you have to have 2 people doing a photography. Tons of photographers only have one person. And that's fine. And I've done photography for a very long time by myself. I don't necessarily have a problem with it.
Yeah.
But I think it's more fun doing it the way we do it. And we just, you know.
Because there's a different perspective that I come at it with, and then there's another perspective that you.
Yeah. And there's so many things that you, as a photographer, when you're focused in on the camera, there's so many things to figure out. Mm-hmm. As the shoot's going on, and hats off to the people that do them by themselves. I mean, that's, you know, it's incredible. But if we don't have to over edit something because we've taken the steps necessary, you know, before we take the picture.
Yes,
and we have set everything up, lighting. We've set everything up, and so when we click the button, it's like minimal editing on our part.
Right.
I'm not saying it's not work. It's just what comes out of the camera is so much higher quality because we have extra eyes. We have extra attention.
Yeah.
You know, you can focus on certain aspects of the shoot with the client, and I can make sure that all the technical things are ready to go.
Right.
And I think it works.
Yeah. And it makes people feel at ease because I'm, you know, talking, I'm directing.
You can always be engaged.
Yeah. And I'm letting them know what's going to happen next. And we also have a way to preview. So before we leave a location, we look through those pictures with the client to say, does this look like what you want it to look like? And if most of the time it doesn't. And sometimes like, let's get a few more in this way. So they feel more in control too of their session, which, you know, I love. But we have gone about this when we start from a business standpoint. Daniel and I feel like number one, I don't think we said this. We are not a couple. We get that all the time. No. We are not a couple. We've never been a couple. We're just family.
Yeah.
Like it's just been our whole life. It's family. We do Thanksgivings together. Yep. We do life just. Yeah. Even if it has nothing to do with the studio.
Yeah, right.
Like he's still FaceTiming me multiple times a day. And then we're dreaming too.
Yeah.
And what I love and our parents were dreamers, and I loved that aspect, but they never quite put it into action to make it a reality.
There were certain things they did very well.
Yes.
And they fostered that idea of you can do anything you want to do kind of thing to a point. And I think that there's a lot of that in that age group, I think. You know, all of us growing up in the 80s and
I mean, there was Amway,
90s, right? There was tons of those, like whatever you call them.
Melaleuca.
Yeah, build your own triangle or whatever it is. I don't know what it's called.
Cell phone card.
Yeah, AT&T and
Yeah.
what was it? MC.
I don't remember.
It was all the different.
It was always
long distance.
peddling something.
Yeah, peddling something.
Peddling something.
Yeah.
But what it showed us in the best of ways is that's why we would jump if somebody says, "Can you do this?" We would be like, "Yeah."
Yeah.
Because we knew we could figure it out.
Right.
Maybe not apart, we could figure it out, but if we were together, we ended up figuring it out.
Right.
And it coming off and looking very professional. And
Yeah.
when we walk away, and we're like,
yeah,
by the skin of our chinny chin chin there, is kind of what it felt like. So we were able to dream and very slowly build our business and make things reality.
Right.
If we needed a certain backdrop, then we budgeted for a backdrop, and we talked about all of those.
Yeah, we're very strategic on how we do things so that we make sure that things are usable in multiple areas, not just one thing, and even more so now
than ever,
because with the economy like it is, it's important to make sure that those dollars stretch as far as they can.
Right. And the other thing for photographer, well, I don't want to get off subject. I will get there in a minute. But the thing that we noticed about our particular style that most business people would say is a weakness was that we didn't have a lane, which is we didn't just do weddings. We didn't do just family pictures and headshots and all those things. We did it all.
Yeah,
and
at some point or another, we have done it all.
We've done it all. And it helped us, but everybody was kind of saying you needed to go in the box, and we kept being like,
yeah, all the coaches and things that you find online and whatnot. You gotta have one particular niche to market, which I'm not in disagreement with.
No, I'm not either.
I've just always found it difficult to get to that point.
Right. So if you're listening, it's not wrong if you gravitate towards one thing and want to focus on one thing. That's amazing. But because of all of these, the history that we just, that we were exposed to, we just couldn't settle ourselves down to say.
And I think if we really narrow down our portfolio to what we've done the most of, it's gonna be headshots.
Yeah.
So in a way, we have kind of niche to that. It's not what we advertise. It's not why we market as much.
Right.
But I would never just say I'm a headshot photographer.
No.
Ever.
No.
Or a wedding photographer.
No.
Or family, whatever it is. I just don't.
We just say we're photographers.
Yeah. For
anything, and then that's so. The struggle for, if you're a photographer and you're listening to this, the struggle for photography now is that everybody has a phone and everybody has a camera on their phone.
The entry level to photography has come down so much in the last 20 years, in the last 5 years. Holy cow. Anybody can grab a really good piece of gear and with some practice, with some knowledge, produce very good pictures.
Yeah.
So hats off to everybody that's trying, for sure.
But I feel like we've stayed a course of continuing education within ourselves, within the art of photography. And that, I just think that our pictures look different and have a different quality to them, which you already touched on earlier. When we shoot out in the field, we are not shooting so that we can put it in Lightroom or Photoshop and fix it.
No, absolutely not.
We're shooting.
That's like the worst thing. I mean, I don't want to do that in my day. It's not.
Yeah.
There's so many other things that we have going on.
Yeah.
I don't want to spend hours and hours and hours editing pictures to make it come out like
artificial.
Yeah, right.
I mean, it's truly artificial. Yeah. And so we take great strides to make sure that what we see in a session is quality,
right,
to where we don't have to touch much.
Yeah.
So there's definitely an art to that. And the other thing that I think has really encapsulated me is the value of being able to get it printed in a
For sure.
quality way. So there's CVS and there's Walgreens and everything, and just so you know, like that's not where our pictures are going.
Just so you know, that's not.
No.
Those aren't options.
No, we don't give them options on that. We had to audition our own selves for a place in Italy
Yeah.
that reproduces and does our printing on museum quality paper that lasts 100 years. And the reason why we have gone all in that direction, or added that to what we were doing, is the power of a photograph when it's hung on the wall is a moment in time that is just, it stopped. And whether it's a twinkle in somebody's eye or what they're holding, I remember the exact moment that happened.
Right.
And I feel like that when our people get something tangible in their hands and put it on their walls, they'll look at it and they'll remember, whether that's we deal with a lot of self-conscious clients.
Yep.
And ladies are the worst, honestly, for being self-conscious and like, hey, don't make me look this, blah blah blah. And once they see what they actually look like through our lens, they're like, that's me?
Yeah.
I didn't know that I could look like that. And so those are the people that we encourage to, hey, buy prints and hang that in your closet when you're feeling down on yourself, and look at that, because that's you.
Yeah.
And that's empowering to me.
Yeah, it is. And it's a lost, I guess, appreciation for the art of it. And I think that's one of the reasons we really gravitated towards the company that we use, because they are very art focused, just with the different products that they offer.
Right.
Not just the quality, but the different options as how those images are displayed.
Right.
And we've all taken for granted having our phones here and having a million pictures of anything we want.
Yeah.
And it's not the same as when you take a specific image and you intentionally place it on your wall, put it in an album. I know albums are really kind of akin to a phone, but it's a different experience. I remember when I was a kid having, my grandparents' house.
Yeah, they have pictures everywhere, all the way going up the stairs.
all the way down the hallway.
Yeah.
It was like just a corridor of photographs and years and years and years of different images of the whole family, different people, and
which I love.
And
and now
it's such a way to preserve your history.
Yeah.
And pass it along, and knowing, like, I get boxes still from family members. I know that my uncle was cleaning out some stuff at my grandparents' house a little while back and sent a box over to the house. It had photos of stuff, just different random stuff. I don't know where it came from or how I got there, but it was nice to have those.
Yeah.
And to look, I even found a book. It was my parents' it wasn't their wedding album. It was the parents' copy
of the wedding.
So it was like way more pictures than was in their actual wedding album.
Yeah.
But it was a small, a small thing.
That's how they did proofs.
Yeah, exactly.
In the day. Yeah.
Right. So it's a huge little book. It's about yay big, but it's stacked full of images from that. And I was like, this is crazy. I mean, I don't even know where.
Yeah.
I have pictures like that somewhere. I don't know where they are. But
most of ours.
They're on a hard drive somewhere.
They're on a hard drive.
And we have to be really diligent about taking those images out of the digital realm and putting them up here on display and being proud of the moments that we have and the gray hairs and the wrinkles. And we've earned every one of these.
Yeah.
And we should be proud of them.
So that brings us to a section of photography that we kind of just fell into. We were asked to be the photographers for a magazine for a couple of years. We did monthly the cover of the magazine and then their front page story. So we would go to different houses. So I love editorial work as well, So we went to this man's house, and anyway, he began to tell us the stories of everything in his house, and he walked around, and it was all these famous artists and all of these things, and I realized I love the wisdom and the memories that old people have.
Old people,
older, aged, however you want to say it. We'll go there. But they still have stories to tell, but they stopped getting their pictures taken about 40 years ago.
Yeah.
And then when they pass on or anything like that, then the celebration of their life service, they have the same 40-year-old picture that did not reflect who that they...
Well, there was a lot of time and a lot of
learning,
life lived between the time they stopped.
Yeah.
We all do it. We all have kids. Those of us that have kids, we all have this point in where we start focusing on the children.
Yeah.
And we don't do that as much for ourselves.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of people have fallen into that kind of place where they don't keep up with that.
So we just called a few of our very special people in our life, and we said, hey, we're coming over to do your pictures. So we didn't even say,
do you want to?
Do you want to?
We just said we're doing it.
We're like, we'll be there Thursday. That's a good day. And so they're preserved.
Right.
Where, almost all the people that I know that I love, that's a service that I believe is valuable for our clients, and it's marketable as well, because it is so unique and needed, I think.
Well, just the experience that we've had here in the studio of seeing those people that are 81 years old,
90
coming into the studio, and they don't have. They're proud of where they are.
Yeah.
When they get down to it, they're proud of who they are, where they are, how long they've been alive, and again, every wrinkle, every gray hair. They're not ashamed of it. Mm-mm. And I think the inhibitions of yesteryear are kind of worn off.
So those are our favorite.
It's amazing what comes out in a shoot like that.
Oh man, they light up.
And then they light up. They just. I don't know. It's a pretty amazing opportunity for us to be a part of that.
If you haven't thought about it, think about it now. That, if you've got parents that are getting up there and haven't had family photos, or, portraiture is different than family photos. So a portrait is singularly focused and tells its own story right, in that one frame.
Right.
And we wait that we both know in a session when we've gotten that one frame. Yeah. It's apparent to us. We know that's that. This is it. So think about that for your family, and give them the gift of that. Give yourself the gift of that, and give the history of your family that legacy too, to pass on as we all come and go in this life as we do.
Yeah. So
now we get down to, we're here in this space. We walked in, we looked at this room.
Yeah, we had our office in here for a little while.
A little while.
And I don't know. We sat down at the table. We had a little shared desk at the time.
Which really did not mean he
wasn't
didn't shared at
I didn't
all.
share. She sat on the corner over there, and
It really gets on my nerves.
And so the rest of it was spread out with all the computers.
By the way,
and stuff.
we argue a little banter like siblings. So
Well, I mean, it's justifiable.
right, we've been around. So if you hear us on a shoot, like, no, why do you want to do that? Because it won't work. Well, I think it will work. Blah 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 blah, and then we find our happy medium.
Yeah,
and it works. And then the people are just so focused on us.
Yeah,
that they're like,
yeah. If we're the biggest idiot in the room, then then everybody else looks like
okay.
masterful, right?
Yeah, right. So we had the Daniel's desk.
Yeah, my desk
in here, and finally we just said we really think this should be a podcast room.
Yeah,
Lamar came into the picture
about a year ago.
Yeah,
I mean, we had kind of discussed it at in passing conversation over the years. Well, not over the years because it's only been about a year and a half.
Yeah,
when we started, when we moved into this place. So, and then earlier this year is when Lamar came. They moved up here from Louisiana, and he said, "Let's really think about this and let's give it some thought and see where we land." And so we just kind of.
It just morphed.
Yeah,
it's morphing still.
Yeah.
So now we have 2 sets. And
yeah. Well, it's getting there.
It's getting there.
We're still in the process of moving everything around and making sure everything gets to where it needs to be. But we do have the options to shoot in different areas of this particular space here, whether we're pointing this way or that way or whatever.
We're building out a third.
Yeah.
Right now, and it just is awesome to me how it's just migrating towards a goal. I don't even, and I guess this is not great to say on a business podcast, but the sky is so the limit for us that I don't, I guess if we need to set goals and have it in front of us. Some people work like that. I'm just not good at that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I have personal goals, but I think when it comes to this, I'm too old at this point. And I'm not saying I'm old. I'm just saying I'm too old to not be all in.
Right.
So whatever happens, I'm all in. Every bit of it, I'm all in. I'm not doing this again, most likely. So
we're not.
I'm not going to rebuild all this stuff and do it differently. So this is it.
But we're still.
But I'm going to do this for the next till I.
Right, but
go,
what I'm saying is we're still finding more places to apply.
Oh yeah,
the things that we've learned over what we've talked about in our history of being on live TV, of knowing what it should look like, of creating a space that people can come in and do their own podcast, and it's not just for us.
Yeah,
it's so valuable. It's not just a photography studio anymore. They are separate businesses, but they are collaborating.
Right.
Legacy doesn't work without us.
Right.
And Adams Lane doesn't work without us.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
So that's, it's a lot of responsibility, I think, too, for our listeners.
Mm-hmm.
It's not easy to juggle 2 sides of a coin like this. We're learning how to do that. We've had some missteps along the way. I mean, I have, obviously. But we're still growing and learning that process. So, yeah. That's definitely what I think. The other thing I would say, and I've said this on other podcasts, as far as what's helped our business, this town is really tight-knit.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
The first thing that we did was we joined the Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah, which is, I mean, I was just at an event a couple days ago that the chamber recommended us for,
right?
And to see people of the community and talk to them, and this community is a pretty amazing thing. I mean, we were in Winston for a while, for what, 5 years,
Yeah.
and running business there. But it was
Isolating.
It was, we were isolated. I don't know that it's isolating. You know what I mean?
But where
But
we
we
were.
were.
Yeah.
And we just weren't in a space to get into those kind of communities, I guess.
Right.
But once we got here, it's such a small community. It's a tight knit community that it was kind of a no brainer for us. Just let's do this. Let's make it. We're moving to a new place. It's a fresh start. Let's get in. Again, we're all in. Let's get all in.
Yeah.
And it's really been great to meet the people in this community and see how everybody supports everybody.
Yeah, they do.
Know? And everybody's working for the greater kind of
good of Kernersville.
At least on this end of the town, right?
Right. I mean, yeah, not everywhere.
So, it's just it's different.
It is. And we're located so centrally to Greensboro and to Winston-Salem and to High Point and all of these places. So we have a greater demographic that we can reach. Yeah. So, what I would say that we're still working on is social media, which we're getting that under our belts. I'm sure there might be some of our listeners and viewers who are feeling the same way. You have to invest in your company, period. Like, even when it hurts at points, like, you've got to invest in your company, especially in this day and age with what makes you look legit. Everything's about perception.
Well, it is at some level.
Yeah.
You have to have that level of professionalism for people to take you seriously.
Right.
In a lot of areas, especially when it's more technical or artistic, things like that. There's a different level of expectation that comes along with some of that stuff. And it's not something you just have to be. You grow into it.
And it's only been you and I for all this time.
Yeah.
And so we've just now gone on a limb and started really investing. I guess I do have goals, because there's other things that people have sat at this table and told us help their business that we are working towards.
Absolutely.
So
whether it's social media
or coaching, different things like that.
All that stuff.
But the biggest thing you get when you come here is you get our best. Every single time you get our best. And I'm proud of our best. And I'm also proud that I've been able, I can't say, I did this myself. Like, I'm proud to say, this is Daniel, or we have done. Yeah. We have been here through the sweat and the tears and the remodels and we need this tech and we don't have the money, all of those things.
Yeah.
And to see where it's going is very gratifying.
Yeah.
After all this time. And sometimes I still want to quit. Sometimes every January.
January is a tough
January's a tough month. But and we're like, are we doing the right thing? Or are we not? No, we hold on, because I think we're making a difference and an impact. And I think there's more to do. We have more of that.
Definitely is.
To do.
Definitely is a lot more to do.
So that is the story of us. There's much more colorful things in between, but that's how we started. And that's, I think if you've worked with someone for over 30 years, I'm pretty sure it's going to last.
I don't know what in the world we'd do otherwise at this point.
No. And, even sometimes I'm at a weak spot physically or whatever, and you're like, then you think again, should we? And it just gives me such life, and it motivates me to do this every time. Even if I'm tired getting here, by the time I'm here, I'm like, okay, I'm in it to win it. Yeah. And so anyway, thanks for being my partner.
Absolutely. I wouldn't have it any other way.
And thank y'all for listening. If you would like to look at our portfolio or just some of the things that we do, whether it's events, Airbnb, real estate. We didn't even mention all of those kind of things that we do. Portraitures, weddings. Sometimes we take very select weddings per year, but we do that, engagement photos, family portraits, and some product photography as well has been put in there. So, and then we create content in this way. So www.adams-lane.com is where you would go to see a piece of our work. Oh, I forgot senior portraits.
Yeah, senior portraits, legacy portraits.
Legacy portraits, yes. So really, we are like the cornucopia. Truly. It's a one-stop shop. That's all you need.
Yeah. I mean, when you think about it, that's what we've always done.
Yeah. So look us up, and also check out Legacy Podcast Studio. It's on all the major Facebook and YouTubes, and do you like how I say the YouTubes? Instagram, Spotify, Apple, all of those things are on there. And the reason we sponsored this is because we believe in ourselves. And I tell you, nowadays when people ask us, can you do this? And we say yes, we know we can now.
Yeah, it's definitely
it's not
a guess or
not a guess.
Cross your fingers and let's,
We know we can now. Yeah. So that's a really great feeling. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you on the next episode with Lamar. He'll be here.
Maybe.
Yes, he'll be here. Bye.